Hi, I'm Chef Gail Sokol and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're making apple cake, and not just apple cake, not just a regular apple cake, but a French apple cake by the famous chef François Payard. And it's specifically from his book, Simply Sensational Desserts. I'm actually going to make the recipe from his book, and it is also, the recipe is also online. Wherever you look up his name, you can look up apple cake. And it is a special apple cake that he made in the bakery that he had with his parents. Even his grandparents started in Nice, France. And I had the unique opportunity to dine in his restaurant, Southold Social, in Southold, New York, on Long Island, last week. It was amazing. He was just so delightful to talk to. It was such an honor to meet one of my guru chefs, my celebrity chefs. So I do strongly recommend that you either purchase his book or look this recipe apple cake up online, because I cannot give his recipe out because it is his to give. So we are going to be making it today. And I will be giving you specific ingredients. So if you want to follow my video, you can also see how it's made as well. So before we get started on this special apple cake, I want you to press that notification button because I want you to become a subscriber. I don't want you to miss any of my tips or videos because they're awesome. And I love having you in my kitchen, and I love showing you my tips and tricks to bake. Okay. So this is not just a typical apple cake, you know, where you put the little chunks of apples in a tube pan with batter around it, or you just put a giant 9 by 13 inch pan. This is in a loaf pan, and this is in a smaller loaf pan, an 8.5 by 4.5 by 2.5. So it's a loaf pan. If you only have a 9 by 5 by 3, it would work. It would just not rise as high. But what I did was I sprayed this pan all over with nonstick cooking spray, floured it, and dumped out the excess flour, setting it aside. Now, we have a few things, a few mise en place to do. And I have to tell you before I get started how I met this wonderful chef. I was eating in his restaurant, unbeknownst to me that he was even there on the premises, because sometimes, you know, the celebrity chefs, you know, they're not there. They just have their sub chefs. Even though they're very, very important, they're executive chefs doing the work of the restaurant. I was eating in a corner table with my husband, and to the back of me there was another table, and I heard French being spoken with a French accent, English with a French accent. And I said, could it be? Could it be Chef Payard? And I turned around, you know, I didn't want to make it look like I was staring at him, but I stared at him and I went, oh! So I said, come here, come here. So when he was done talking to those people, he came over to me, and I just about leapt out of my chair and gave him a hug. And he was delightful to talk to. He even grabbed my hand and took me into his kitchen to show me how he did everything and how he made some of his desserts. But he also said that he was also doing the heavy-duty cooking as well, which is amazing because the meal was amazing. So I had a treat. It was a special time for me to meet a celebrity chef. I've met many celebrity chefs. Not all of them are as lovely as Chef Payard. So Chef Payard, if you're watching, mwah, love you. So let's get started. This is a creaming method of mixing cake. So we have softened butter that we're going to cream with some sugar. And this is confectioner's sugar. So I have 1 cup of confectioner's sugar that I've put in the bowl of my mixer, my electric mixer. If you feel the confectioner's sugar is lumpy, do put it through a sieve. Sometimes they do get lumpy over time. And then I just put in 1 stick or 8 tablespoons, which is also equivalent to half a cup, of unsalted butter. Very soft, all right, very soft. And I'm going to take my paddle attachment, and I'm going to cream this on medium-high speed until the butter is very creamy and the sugar is incorporated. And we're going to sort of beat in a little air into that butter, and that's going to help our cake to rise along with our special ingredient baking powder. So I'm going to let that go for a minute. So I have a few things that I've just left here ready to go. This is our mise en place, our steps that we take to pre-get our ingredients ready so they're ready to just throw in the mixer. We don't have to go back and forth. So what I've done is I've taken 1 cup of all-purpose flour, and it's scant. Chef Payard refers to it as a scant cup of flour. And that means not quite a cup. It's a little less. So I just took a little bit, I measured a cup and then just took a little bit out. And that is what I have here, 1 cup. It's an old-fashioned term. This was originally his father's recipe, which he holds very dear, and that's why he put it in his book. So 1 cup all-purpose flour, scant, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder, and he knows to mix this. He said to put it through a sieve. I'm just going to whisk it because I want to not only get any lumps out, but I also want to mix the baking powder in with the flour to get it homogeneously blended so we don't get one area risen, one area not risen, or any holes or lumps or bumps in our dough, in our batter, and in our ultimate cake. So I'm going to put that aside. And then I've done something else that he has taught me. I took 1/3 cup of raisins, dark raisins. You can use light if you like, but he uses the dark raisins. I put them in a small saucepan, covered them up with water, and brought them to a boil for 1 minute. Drained them, filled them up with water just to cover, put it to a boil again for 1 more minute, drained them, put them in a little tiny bowl, and added 3 tablespoons of dark rum. You heard me right, dark rum. Delightful smell. So this is our little extra special kick into our apple cake that sort of turns it into something extra special. And then I've also cracked 3 large eggs, the whole egg, into a liquid measuring cup. You could use a pitcher, anything you like, but I usually pre-crack them because I want to get any shell that has come into it, and sometimes that happens. You can actually have shell. So once we've reached this creaming step, and you can see it's nice and creamy, almost looks like a buttercream, I'm actually going to scrape down the sides just to get any sugar that might have stuck to the sides. All right. And now we add our eggs 1 at a time. And the way I know I've added 1 egg is if a yolk goes in and any white that goes in with it, I call it an egg, a whole egg. And that's worked very well for me. So I'm going to incorporate that. I'm just going to grab a spoon because I will need that to get my all-purpose flour and my baking soda and my baking powder into my batter without getting it all over my floor. Once you see that 1 egg is incorporated, you can start adding the 2nd egg. And this is building your batter. This is known as the creaming method of mixing. A typical creaming method uses like milk and dry ingredients, and they alternate them. This has no milk. I'm sure the rum takes the place of some of the liquid in it, and it's delightful, so it's wonderful. This cake is scrumptious. I have made it many times. I'm going to add my 3rd egg, my 3rd and final egg. It's a very special recipe. It's not something you would see typically. It would be great as a gift. It would be great as if you're having people over for like a little lunch or tea or dessert, breakfast. You can have rum for breakfast. Yes, you can. I say so. So we're going to add our rummy raisins right now. All right, we're going to add those. Get in there. One of them is trying to not go in. Go on in. Thank you. And now we're going to add our dry ingredients, and that's our batter. So I'm going to put this on a lower speed and gradually add my flour and my baking powder. And that is the batter. It is the simplest batter. But again, you want to make sure that your butter is at room temperature and your eggs are at room temperature. You'll get the best uniform hole structure in your cake if you do this. All right, and you use your rubber spatula to push anything that didn't go in down. And then what I'm going to do is just go around the edges and just push that. At this point, you don't want to overmix because you don't want to develop too much gluten. You do want to have some for structure, but you don't want, we're not making a pizza dough here, folks. This is a special, delicious, light apple cake. And a lot of apple cakes are heavier. They're not really that light. So I'm done mixing. Again, not too much mixing at this point. And I'm going to show you my batter. My batter's beautiful. You are beautiful. I like to talk to my food. This is my batter. And it's lovely, and it's full of rummy raisins. And now we're going to build this cake in a way that you've probably never seen before. Very, very different. Very different. I have preheated my oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've taken out the top rack because this is a good size loaf pan. I want to make sure I have, room for everything to rise. It's not going to rise way high, but it will rise. And I'm just going to scrape around the bottom to make sure that all the flour and everything is mixed in. All right, so I'm going to put half of my batter in here, just half. So sort of eyeball it and put it in with a rubber spatula. All right, just half. And then I have a offset spatula so I can smooth it. I can smooth it in. If you don't have an offset, you could use a spoon. Sometimes a butter knife isn't going to go in very well. So I'm going to take my offset and I'm just going to smooth this batter. And the batter is beautiful. It's silky looking because of the butter. And I'm sure that rum doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? And you do get this little light, subtle flavor of rum that when you taste it, but it's not like, hey, I can't give it to my kids. It's really a lovely, lovely, lovely light flavor. All right, so once I'm done with that, now we start layering apples, okay? So this is the fun part. So I have one apple. Chef Payard likes Fiji or Rome apples. I found Fiji, so I grabbed Fiji, and I found big Fijis. And this, as you can see, is not a huge loaf pan. So if your Fiji apples are like way big, you can, when you slice them, you can actually cut off the ends. That's what I did to make everybody fit in on the batter. So what I did was I peeled, cored, and quartered one Fiji apple, and then I cut it into 12ths. So after it's quartered, cut each quarter into thirds, okay? So I have slices like this, and I did whack off some of the sides because I want all the, we have another apple to fit in here. This is like a really great apple cake. So now what I'm going to do is cut side down where the seeds were, and the round side up where you peeled, I'm going to put the peeled side up, and I'm going to put it into rows, and I'm going to show you. And I'm going to push it down into the batter, and we should have 12. You want 12 in a line in a row. And they may look like they're really going to be up against each other, and that's fine. If they're touching and they're like, paper dolls holding hands, that's fine. So this is going to be really close-knit quarters in here, okay? Close-knit quarters, because we got a lot of apples in here. So squeeze that last one in. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, see that? Pretty, but we're not done yet. Okay, watch. So now we're going to take the other half of batter, scoop it up, and just sort of gently plop it on. You do not want to dislodge or disturb those beautiful little apples that are already making friends with each other in there, okay? Get everybody in there. All right, get your offset again. Smooth, smooth. See, it's beautiful batter. It spreads beautifully. Some apple cakes, you have to like really, really, you know, spreading it is hard. Okay. Spreading it is very hard. Okay. Next, I take another Fiji apple, all right? I have peeled it, I've quartered it, and this time I am cutting it into, after it's quartered, I'm cutting each quarter in half, okay? And then cutting it crosswise. So if this is a whole slice, I've cut it crosswise, whacked it right here. And then I'm gonna put these down the sides. We have 16 pieces now, so you're gonna have 8 wedges that you cut crosswise, okay? So each quarter you cut in half lengthwise to have 8 pieces, and then you're gonna cut each piece crosswise to fit on the side. So I'm gonna put them with the rounded side out again, and this time you're gonna push them in, push them in, and if you see that the slices are really big, mine were really big, mine were like baseball size, like huge apples, not delicate like Chef Payard must use. So I did take some of the ends off that you can eat later, and I'm just pushing these in. So theoretically you want 4 per side, and then you're going to push them in. You want to just see like the tips. And if you leave a little bit more out, it's okay. I don't think Chef Payard would get upset with you. All right, so I got 1 more to go, and I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to do it. I got to take a little baby one, a small one. All right. And these are going to be close too. You see what I'm doing? And I'm pushing, 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 pushing them in. You see that? So you're going to have 2 rows lengthwise, and you're going to push them in. We're going to do the same on this side. All right. And we have preset our oven, preheated our oven. You must do this at least 20 minutes before you actually are going to put this in the oven, because some ovens will take time to preheat. I know mine does, and I want to make sure, and some ovens will tell you, they'll go beep or something, they'll hit you on the shoulder, whatever it is, and they'll let you know when they're ready. Okay, so these pieces were massive, so I have 2 left over, so I'll just have to eat those. Too bad. And you see what I've done? See that? So once you make sure you push them in as far as they'll go, you don't want to really push, but you will see the batter come up, and it'll form a really nice, top when it bakes. You are going to bake this because you want to cook this is apple, like apple heavy duty, okay? So you really want to make sure the apples are cooked through. So at 325 degrees Fahrenheit, you bake this for 60 to 65 minutes. It will become golden brown, and a small sharp knife inserted into the center will come out clean. And I baked mine. Mine took about 60 minutes. If you need that extra 5 minutes, that's fine. My oven tends to run hot. So I'm going to see you back because we still have some other things we need to do to this cake. See you back. So my apple cake baked at 325 Fahrenheit, 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 60 minutes. You can bake it for up to 60 to 65 minutes, depending on your oven. My oven's a little hot, and it's gorgeous, and it's very hot. But I unmolded it after waiting about 10 minutes in the pan, 10 to 15 minutes in the pan. I've unmolded it. And now we're going to put the piece de resistance. So we are going to put a beautiful apricot glaze on it, okay? So Chef Payard makes his own glaze. So what I've done is I have 1/3 cup of a very high quality apricot preserves. I've put it into a small microwave safe bowl, and I've microwaved it on high for about 20 seconds. And if your microwave is pretty powerful, that's enough. If it's not bubbly, you want to microwave it again. And if you want to cover it with a paper towel so it doesn't spatter, that's fine. Mine never spattered. But it's nice and loose, okay? But it still has pieces of apricot. So we're going to put this through a sieve. All right. And this is so beautiful to do. You can do this on a fruit tart too. You can do this over, you know, like a cake or anything you want. It's very, very easy, easy, easy to do. So I'm going to push this through a sieve, very fine mesh sieve. And you're just going to have enough, probably about a 1/4 cup left over after all the apricots are pushed through. You don't want to push them through. What I'm saying is they're going to get caught in the sieve. And then you're going to have enough just to give a bright glaze, a shininess to that apple cake to show it's not your typical apple cake. This is really something very, very different. All right. So I'm going to push this as much as I can through. Push off on the bottom. Okay. And then I have my pastry brush. And you see how beautiful and clear that is? You want to do this on a hot cake because it'll spread nicely. And just put it all over the cake. Gives it a nice shine. It's beautiful. And of course you would use more if you were going to use this for something else. But this is just enough to put over this beautiful, beautiful apple cake, care of Chef François Payard, who I can now say I know him. It's sort of a cool thing. Once in a lifetime thing, a real pleasure, a real honor to meet him. All right, so I'm putting that on there. You can see the shininess, it's beautiful. This will keep very nicely for a few days, and this would freeze nicely as well. You can even bake it, and what I would do is freeze it if you're going to serve it another time, and glaze it right before serving. So there you have François Payard's apple cake that is also in his cookbook. And if you look him up online, you can get his recipe. And I hope you become a subscriber. Until next time.